Know what you have done? You've stolen a vaccine from somebody that needs it more than you.
We hear all about the adults. We don't hear about the kids very often, and it can affect kids in so many different ways. I have one child who's a long hauler, and the other one who barely had any symptoms.
I'm Emily, I'm 13.
I'm Melissa, I'm 10 years old.
I swim with the Orange Water Swim Club. I like drawing, I like playing my ukulele.
I like to be outside, and I'm a provincial level swimmer, and we like to go skating.
So I'm a first responder, and I'm the one who brought it into our house. So we're assuming that I gave it to the kids just before I got symptoms.
For me, I had a cough for 2 to 3 days and a stuffy nose for about 12 hours. That's all the symptoms I had. Because of Alyssa's asthma, she got all the respiratory stuff.
I started getting a sore throat. Then it started to be a kind of bad head cold, and I had a bit of difficulty breathing.
Alyssa was the sickest out of the family. Day 8, she broke out in hives and a rash, head to toe, and that was scary. On day 9, her hands, feet, and face swelled up. She couldn't even walk into my room, she crawled in.
I was red all over, and it was really bumpy.
So they did lots of blood work, and fortunately, it wasn't in any of her organs. It is now a little over 4 months later, and she's still experiencing a lot of joint pain, still some trouble breathing, and she's still getting all sorts of rashes and hives.
It sometimes just affects being a kid, because walking up the hill hurts my knees. Skating sometimes hurts my knees.
A few weeks after, I was back to training. I was back to my old self. I was just worried that when me and Alyssa went back to school, people would just say behind our back oh, there's the people that had COVID. But when I got back, they were all so happy to see me.
Some of the boys were oh, I'm staying away from you, but that doesn't really bother me because boys can be annoying. But a lot of my friends were oh, hi, and just welcoming back.
I think we definitely treasure our time together a little bit more now. If your child has any underlying conditions, be more vigilant. We were extremely careful, and unfortunately, COVID did come into our house.
Well, my next guest is one of 2,000 kids who participated in a COVID-19 vaccine trial for children and teens. Duke University is testing the Pfizer vaccine on children between the ages of 12 and 15. Caleb Chung joins me now, along with his dad, Dr. Richard Chung. Good morning to both of you. Thanks for being on our program.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Caleb, why did you want to be part of this study?
Well, I definitely wanted to be part of it in order to show that the vaccines are safe for children, and so that we could progress in the development of the vaccine for younger people, as it's very vital, I believe, for us to reach herd immunity.
Were you nervous or scared?
I was a little bit hesitant at first because I actually didn't really know much about these kinds of trials, and I had to go over the requirements with my family first and learn more about the process before I decided to make the decision to move on to doing the trial.
And that's when it's helpful to have a dad who's a pediatrician. So, Dr. Dad, what did you say to Caleb? Tell us about that conversation and how much coaxing was involved.
Yeah, sure. So it was in mid-December when we had heard that they were starting this 12 to 15-year-old age group. And I had the great fortune of actually working alongside some of the doctors who are overseeing the trial here in North Carolina. And so I had the opportunity to ask them some questions and learn about the trial. This is also around the time when a lot of the initial adult data for this particular vaccine had come out, and there was a lot of real positive energy just because it was shown to be really safe and effective, at least in the adult group.
Progress getting vaccines into remote Indigenous communities has been made, but like in every community across the country, vaccine shortages have delayed the process.
We have not been able to completely meet the goals that we have set, but we have used every single dose that we have been given to vaccinate as many people as possible.
So far, approximately 16,000 people living on reserve have received at least one dose, but another 22,000 doses are needed to get everyone their first shot. The goal is still for that to happen by the end of March. In the meantime, they worry about variants which haven't been found yet and developing culturally sensitive protocols as clinics move into larger communities.
Before the vaccine is given, and some of the planning that I've heard talks about, so many minutes per vaccine, and that there will be 40 vaccinators in a large space working at once, where large numbers of people and noise and confusion may be occurring. And for some individuals, and I'm thinking specifically about our elders, that may be overwhelming.
This isn't a transactional experience. It's not about the flow through exclusively. For us, it's a transformative experience. It's an opportunity to tell our story and write the story that is meaningful for our First Nations people.
The Newhalk Nation says it is set to write more of their story this week, planning to vaccinate another 110 people after Vancouver coastal health officials were forced to apologize after withdrawing more than 200 promised doses in January. Officials say the planning has been better.
So getting a good night's sleep under regular conditions can be hard enough, but what about during a pandemic? Psychologist Rebecca Robillard is with the University of Ottawa, a sleep scientist. Thank you for helping us all out here, because talking about sleep sort of feels like a pandemic preoccupation now. We know that stress can have a huge impact on our sleep, but what is it that's different about pandemic stress that's affecting our sleep?
I guess the fact that the pandemic is affecting our lives in so many different ways, it's not just a single stressor, it's a multi-dimensional stressor. So for example, the fact that this also spans across such a sustained period of time, we're bringing on the pill a lot of new worries about our family members being healthy or not, about financial pressures and all sorts of worries that are new.
And what about our habits when it comes to working from home? How much, for those who are working from home, how much do the shifts in those habits affect our sleep?
So that certainly creates a new routine for us. And our biological clock, which also regulates our sleep-wake cycle, is very, very sensitive to our routine. And so, for example, our social interactions, a lot of which come from work, as well as our daily light exposures, are two of the main factors that will kind of help anchor our biological clock in a stable time.
So rather than just focus on why people aren't sleeping well, can you offer us some tips for how it can get better?
So it's helpful to maintain a regular sleep-wake schedule, both in terms of bedtime, but also wake-up time. Stay active, especially doing cardiovascular activities can help. Also minimizing the light that we're exposed to in the evening, so contains the computers, tablets, phones, televisions, but try to boost up light in the morning, so try to get some sunshine in the morning.
At this Hamilton hair salon, happiness tempered by trepidation. The province walking a fine line with reopening.
I'm happy to be open, but I'm also nervous because there is definitely a possibility we could close again because the cases are going to go up.
In most of Ontario, salons, gyms, restaurants opening at limited capacity. All this easing up, happening as more contagious variants are on the rise. 7% of all positive tests in Ontario are now variant cases. And while the overall case count is going down, Ontario is still dealing with rampant community transmission and about 1,000 new cases a day.
We're opening the economy as we're having kids go back to school, as these variants become more and more dominant. We're changing too many things at once, but if the goal is to protect the health and safety of Ontarians, I think this is a bad decision.
The province concedes cases could very well spiral again. It's ramping up asymptomatic surveillance testing at schools and sending more rapid testing kits to essential workplaces. Following criticism, it was slow to deploy them. Still, the province is not being aggressive enough, says this epidemiologist.
We got a bit faster if we just take our time and not let too much transmission happen in the short term so that we can let the vaccines do their job.
Experts, including one of the province's top medical officials, say paid sick leave is crucial. But Premier Doug Ford scoffed today at reinstating the provincial program.
People need to know that if they're not feeling well or they need to go get a test, they're not going to lose their pay.
restaurant owners Jennifer and George Varagos were forced to lay off staff in the first lockdown. They're now hoping for the best, fending off fears of the worst.
If a third lockdown comes in, I don't see it making it at all. I mean, we're barely making it now.
Days out from our first COVID vaccinations, there have been flashpoint protests against the rollout. Police clashing with anti-vaxxers, mounting a last-ditch campaign against the shot.
The protesters blocked city streets here and in Melbourne, pushing back against what they claim is mandatory inoculation. But health chiefs dismiss their claims as conspiracy theories.
On the cusp of the rollout.
What do we want? Medical freedom! When do we want it? Now!
In capital cities across the country, people rallied to protest against the COVID vaccine.
We will not comply!
In Melbourne, the march turned.
Get on the ground now!
Police overwhelmed, several protesters restrained. In a city where a snap lockdown ended just days ago,
Sack Dan Andrews!
pepper spray was pulled to gain control. Calmer crowds in the hundreds in Brisbane, Adelaide, Hobart and Perth. In Sydney, protesters peaceful but vocal.
Our bodies, our choice!
Whipping up the crowd, discredited conspiracy theorist Pete Evans.
Everybody has their own truth, and to be honest with you, I don't have the answers.
Despite the federal government repeatedly reinforcing the message the vaccine is safe and voluntary, there were signs like this.
And while these people are making their voices heard, on Monday thousands of others will do the same. They will choose to roll up their sleeve and have the injection.
Become informed from the true sources, from the authorised sources, about the importance of that vaccine, the safety of that vaccine.
Quarantine workers, frontline health and aged care residents the first to get the shot.
We have great confidence in the safety of this vaccine.
In New South Wales, no local cases again today. That's 34 in a row. But
fragments of the virus that caused COVID-19 have been detected at sewage network site at Auburn.
while there are up to 24 suburbs in the catchment area, it's possible the fragments are from an old case. There was one new case in hotel quarantine as the government chases people who have checked out on the cost. Since last July, 79,000 travellers have racked up $107 million in hotel quarantine bills, but $10 million remains unpaid, with debt recovery orders now issued.
I'm just not going to pay.
Adelaide teacher Simon Michalak was forced to quarantine at the Mascot Meriton because of a non-COVID medical issue. He says the stay made him sicker.
I don't believe that the service that was provided was worth $3,000.
He'll take his battle to court.
You know what you have done? You've stolen a vaccine from somebody that needs it more than you. And now you're not going to get your second one. So that's a whole waste of time we just wasted here on this. And we're not even sure if they're going to press charges against you and take you to jail right now. So we're at that point right here. But just for your selfishness of stealing a vaccine.
Okay, this is a trespass warning. You're hereby warned that you are not authorized, licensed, or invited to be in these premises and may be arrested if you refuse to leave or return at any time in the future. It's this building, it's our other building, it's our site.
Parking garage,
everything.
Anything, the whole property around here. You're not allowed to be here no more. It's ridiculous that you're here right now.
So your information is going to be flagged with the vaccine software. Okay. So
You're Martha.
You guys try and do this again.
Your copy.
You're not going to get a vaccine. Okay. So you got to wait your turn. All right. So those are yours. Car keys. You're going to get a copy of each one of those. If you come back, anytime you're going to be arrested. Any question about that?
No, that's not.
You're lucky you're not being arrested right now.
Sorry, I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is a case of life and death. We're talking about people's lives. I want you to know that once we beat COVID, we're going to do everything we can to end cancer as we know it.
This has been a Dog in a Bonnet production, 2021.